At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Welcome back to our show, everyone. Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
It's Stephen Shaw here.
Yes, we're a married couple, and we're just eat.
We're still here.
We eat, breathe, and drink UFO. That's our main function these days.
Currently, yes. So we have some interesting information to pass along about Schumann waves.
Yes, our last guest, Michael Kopf, had this. He pointed out that maybe the uptick in
the paranormal and the UFO activity
could be partly due to the Schumann wave activity.
Yes, this is something I learned about in about 1988 when I was in acupuncture college, how it affects the ionosphere, the Earth, and actually the acupuncture points. And Leslie's got some of the details of what Schumann waves are.
Yeah.
So I'll let her do that.
Michael pronounced it Schumann, and I can see why, because it's spelled Schumann, and that would be my first guess, too.
Yeah, but it's Schumann.
And they're a set of electromagnetic frequencies found in the Earth's atmosphere, specifically between the surface and the ionosphere. These resonances are a global phenomenon, primarily excited by lightning strikes. Mm-hmm. They are characterized by a fundamental frequency of 7.83, spiking to 33.8.
And those are hertz. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Michael said, though, that sometimes these things spike off the scale. They just pin the scale up.
Right. He says it goes white, basically where they can't read them. And what I learned as far as how they affect mammalian creatures, such as animals, and of course human beings, is that they stimulate and overly excite the acupuncture points, where they become more open. And actually, another interesting fact that we found out too is that human beings have the ability to bioluminesce.
Yes, apparently we do bioluminesce, and it's one of the things but it's so faint so that we don't see it with our eyes, but it can be measured.
Right.
And we think, we've heard from in our podcasting world that people who come back, women who come back after coddling their baby aliens from the spaceships, if they're put under a black light, they'll actually bioluminesce where the baby was. So we think that because they're living underground, they're actually beginning to bioluminesce more than we do.
And the luminescence actually is a really nice tie-in for our guest today.
That's right.
Joshua Sisler.
Yes, he's with Atslan. Ancient Atslan is the Instagram location, but he's also one of these fellas pulling the amazing artifacts out of the Mexico caves.
Yeah, a real life, modern day Indiana Jones is actually doing the work.
Let's show him.
So we'll go give a quick visual of one of the pieces we obtained from Joshua.
Yeah, we bought this from Joshua at Contact in the Desert this year. You can see this wonderful little spaceship with a little alien guy coming out of it. It looks like a shrimp, and then of course these obviously gray alien faces. And then on the back is I'm sorry, you're trying to say again.
And these are being dated between 2,000 and possibly 25,000 years and older, depending where they are in the the soil as far as how deep they are. Some bioluminesce and some don't. So anyways, we're going to talk to them all about that on the show today.
Actually, well, they luminesce. We don't really know how.
They have a patina. Yeah, some of them have a patina that's put on them.
But it's been defying analysis. They're having trouble figuring out how they did it.
Yeah. So anyways.
And let's introduce our wonderful guest, Joshua Sisler. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the show, everyone. We're introducing our wonderful guest for tonight, Joshua Sisler. He's with ancient Aztlan. Am I saying that right, Joshua?
Yeah, ancient Aslan. Yeah, similar.
Aslan, sorry.
It's almost like silent, but yeah, ancient Aslan. Yeah.
Aslan. And he is one of these people pulling these amazing finds out of the Mexican soil and caves. Joshua, tell us about where you've been working.
Yeah, I've actually been going down to Ojuelos de Jalisco for the last 10 years, and I've done 9 expeditions down to the heart of Ojuelos. So this is it's a sacred little mountain town in the middle of, central Mexico. It's about an hour outside of Aguascalientes. But it's a really special place. I mean, there's flat mesa top mountains, right? Where they believe that there was, ships used to land on the tops of these flat tops of these mountains.
Yeah.
There's actually magical stories that you hear from the locals that there's even, myths that the sides of the mountains would actually, through vibration, could open up almost like a stargate, and they would dock ships. And there's even myths that there's still ships that are stored in these mountains.
Yes, wow. We don't think it's myths, actually.
Yeah, yeah, we
think it's real. And that's kind of their MO is.
Seems to be. Yes.
They like we'll see. We'll be talking to a witness, and they'll say they were looking at Mount Shasta, for instance, and a portal will open up on the side of the mountain, and UFOs will shoot in and out of it, and close back up. So. This is a story we've heard more than once from different people.
Yes, so believe it, magical. Believe that or not, this is happening all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And we know now, there's also portals in the ocean. There's a lot of imagery coming out of these aquatic beings, these aquatic gods, right? And we also see it throughout mythos where, the Oannes, right? The Dagon being would come out of the water, with knowledge to basically reactivate humanity after the great flood, or at certain times that they would come back and they would find certain, humans that they felt were basically supposed to be the guardians of all of this information. And they would basically use technology to upload their consciousness with lifetimes of information from the gods. And I believe
Viracocha was also supposed to have raised up out of Lake Titicaca or something when he came back.
There we go.
There.
And we know now that a lot of these myths they're all interconnected, because if we were all globally communicating, then all those myths, that fragmented out to all these different, locations could have all been one myth, if we were all in communication. And I believe we were at a certain time. That's what it all seems to feel like.
I think myself, from what we found with our research too, the pyramids were integral in that, earth-wide communication, not being basically communication centers as well as power plants and such as that. So that's why they were being found all over the world.
Yeah, I love
that. Now, this location, how far away is it from Teotihuacan?
I've done the road trip from there. It's about 7 hours. Roughly 8 hours, maybe stopping and stuff. So it's not super close to to that pyramid location, but there's pyramids all over Mexico. We hear about maybe 20 of the major ones, but there's over 2,000, right? It's something that we don't hear about. When you go into the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, there's amazing maps that they've painted, and it really shows a lot more of the details of how many pyramids are actually throughout that location, and it's somewhere upward near probably more than 2,000. A lot of the sites, when you actually go through the jungles, you'll start to see that there's a lot of pyramids that they haven't even acknowledged yet. They're just still ruins, but there's a lot to focus on, of course, but a lot of this stuff hasn't even been unearthed, and it's just
this was obviously pointing to an enormous sophisticated civilization that is much older than they're giving credit to.
Then that really brings me into I've been doing a bit of research on the TCM. I think it's called terrestrial cosmogenic nuclides.
Wow. And
the patinas that are being found on some of the pieces that are between only in the layers, at least according to Michael Forrest, in the layers between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, but not on the ones that are 20 or 25,000 years ago. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, well, what we do notice is what almost looks like a vitrification, like the stone itself is melted almost, right? There's an extreme heat process of alchemy that seems to have happened. And we believe that it's very possible that these artifacts are a representation of technology. And when you analyze them on a deeper level, and I think I got into this a little bit with you guys at the Contact in the Desert or wherever it was that we ended up connecting, but
I was there.
the artifacts themselves, they have a unique reaction to ultraviolet light, right? And we know now ultraviolet light is a certain frequency. It's a radiation, and it's a way that you can actually activate the atomic structure of certain material. And so these artifacts have that reaction where literally when you hit them with an ultraviolet light, they'll actually put off an electron excitation, and it's a photonic reaction of the electrons going into hyperspin state and literally they get captured in certain sacred vacancy locations within the atomic structure. And that is so unique because what you need is a highly advanced, atomic structure to actually mimic and create that. And if we're actually looking at some form of an ancient, nano geopolymer, meaning these are geopolymers, these were assisted into creation, meaning they weren't a natural formation. Some of these were highly advanced nano geopolymers, meaning some way through alchemy, we have assisted this highly advanced process of basically mimicking the lattice of diamond technology, but in a natural geopolymer. So the advanced civilizations right now, we're analyzing these artifacts and starting to understand that this is a form of, they're a representation of ancient quantum technology. So
wow, that's a mind bender, and I hope our audience are taking some notes because that's a lot to take in.
The lake of Mercury under the Temple of the Feathered Serpent proves to us that this is an industrial process to make mercury. It's not, it's
to make liquid mercury
you have to be a pretty advanced society to be able to make it.
So far, we've only found that underneath the pyramid of the first emperor in China,
right,
and also of course under the feathered serpent. And that also brings us into the whole question of why were the Nazis so interested in liquid mercury? Because there was a submarine found off the coast, I think it was Norway, not too long ago, that had like 300 barrels. Somewhere around 300 barrels of liquid mercury that they put a lot of time and effort into manufacturing this mercury. And for what purpose? We know that mercury was the first world superconductor that we know of. So it's like, we're always getting back to like this ancient knowledge.
You just activated so many different topics within me. The first thing when you bring up the mercury, we can then jump into red mercury. And we can jump into, when you research, like a lot of people talk about like the topic of Tartaria, but it's, it's about all of the ancient architecture that was all throughout the Americas prior to, Christopher Columbus even coming here and claiming the discovery, right? So, why this is so exciting for me is because I literally just 2 weekends ago, it was the Grateful Dead's 60th anniversary, and they held that in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And they held it in the exact same location of the Old World Fair from 1897, the very first Old World Fair. And when you start to look into these Old World Fairs, you'll start to see that they were using this technology, and they were using the red mercury. Red mercury was held at an extremely high altitude in the atmosphere. And once you get high enough up, you can start to access atmospheric energy. And so the red mercury played a very powerful role in how they were accessing the infinite source of atmospheric energy, and that energy was being amplified out to the world. So it was a way that we were all accessing. Tesla was either back engineering this technology that they had all inherited, right? This is what we hear about now, because I ended up sitting through synchronicities, and this is how magic likes to represent itself. And I like to believe that in a sense, it's like Father Time will channel through someone to test you, or whatever it is, you'll get blessed with sitting next to the right person. So this woman sits next to me for a brief moment in time, and I start talking to her. I'm like, they're holding this event at a very sacred location, and I brought up the Old World Fairs. She looks over at me and laughs. She says, "My family is 9th generation here. My family came over on the original Mayflower." And I was like, "What?" I literally got chills. And she says, "All the buildings that you hear about here, all of those buildings were already here when they came here." She's like, "It's well known throughout my family." And I started freaking out. I'm trying to, like, can I get your information? Is there, you know, like, I need to do an interview with you. And so I luckily somehow saved, you know, her contact, and I reached back out to her, but we're going to get, I'm going to get more information on that. And I'm going to see if she has any other like written evidence or something that we can actually document, because ninth generation, her family came over, and we know that the written historical timeline is completely an indoctrination spell to basically not let us actually look at, you know, our true authentic history, which was highly advanced, working with this scalar technology that was accessible, where humanity was thriving. This is why we had time to literally create these sacred architectural masterpieces, you know, and the architecture itself is geometric. It amplifies an energetic field that actually activates the human auric energy. Like our biophotonic energy is activated by everything around us. And, you know, they say that when we went into the era of right angles and our buildings were all stagnant, you know, the energy doesn't necessarily flow correctly. So there was a lot of blocks and distortions. But one of my favorite people that I follow on YouTube is John Levy, but his work is amazing. It's all about, you know, basically trying to understand how much of our historical timeline has been, you know, rewritten. And he's mainly just looking at the architecture, because the architecture holds an artistic signature, the architectural signature. And you know, that's one thing that's unique about this. Sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a rant because I'm just passionate about this, but
no, passion away, rant away.
That anything holds an artistic signature. I mean, the buildings hold an artistic signature. And so when you really start to see, that's why they've been destroying them all and claiming that, you know, that they're old and they were just, you know, temporary buildings. It's because they hold a visual signature. And once we can actually see that artistic signature of the building, the architectural signature, we can confirm that those are the same architects that built these other old world buildings that they have already honored through antiquity. So this is
who's destroying what now?
Oh, basically all of the old world fairs and all of the architecture that was literally royalty. It was our inheritance of this land, and they've destroyed all of these old world buildings. And they're doing it right now as we speak. You just got to kind of look into it, but it's a huge topic.
You know, it's interesting you're mentioning about how we're starting to work with right angles. Like, for instance, like the geodesic dome. It is such a much better amplifier for, like, you know, the negative ions, which are the ones that basically allow us to build. Which brings us to the next topic, is that, you know, that human beings do have a latent ability to bioluminesce under the right conditions. We do have bioluminescence. And things like, you know, like regular, like one-story buildings with the right angles, it actually holds more positive ions, which means it's basically going to be more negative energy. You know, it's just funny because, like, you know, Niagara Falls is, like, they call it the honeymoon spot, because it produces a mass amount of negative ions, which produce the love vibration. And gee, what does that mean? You were less violent, you know, we're happier. Like, you go to the Middle East, they call them the devil winds. They, in fact, even like they say that if you commit a murder during a devil wind, they actually give you a lighter sentence because they realize it makes people nuts.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. So these are all measurable things. Okay.
I was excited to do a podcast with you too, because I knew how intelligent you guys both were, and I knew how, you know, unique you guys. We have similar minds on how we can.
Oh yeah, you're an attractor.
Yes.
You're an attractor.
Yeah, I was excited about this because I was like, oh, I know I'm going to hear about some interesting stuff.
Speaking of interesting, have you looked into the work of Mark Carlotto?
Not yet.
I highly recommend doing so. He's the one. He was an engineer, and he works as a cartographer. Sorry, I had to remember the word. Right. And he uses satellite data to scan the Earth and essentially create maps, geomaps. And he noticed that every single pyramid complex in Mexico were all aligned to exactly the same coordinates, but they were all off from the
current coordinates.
No, from the cardinal points by several degrees. And when he extended the alignments out towards the north, they all align with where the North Pole used to be in the East Hudson Bay. And the last time the North Pole was in the East Hudson Bay was between 12,000 and 18,000 years ago. according to Hapgood and his lithospheric shift theories. So we think that the Great Flood really did happen, and it actually, the tsunamis and the fact that so much fresh water ice was trapped at the poles caused this lithospheric shift where the whole planet shifted. And this, to us, proves that all of the complexes in Mexico were built between 12 and 18,000 years ago.
I love this. Yeah, I mean, it's right in alignment, I feel, especially as well. I mean, we can talk about the Great Pyramids as well, being in alignment with Orion's belt. And they they actually have tried to create, connections on how these sacred sites are basically anchors. They're like a star map that's been anchored into the Earth's surface. And they say, another place that they did this was the Hoover Dam. And this is how I even unlocked this information. The artists basically created at the base of the Hoover Dam, there's a massive mosaic star map that's inlaid into the base. Yeah, it's really unique because it's got
that's interesting.
It's got a very eerie energy. And when you actually go look it up, it's at the base of the Hoover Dam there. I think they're removing it right now because of how much esoteric imagery was in it. There was a star map that had Alcyone, right? The central sun depicted as an anchoring location, but this was highly advanced. And so a lot of information started coming out about this. And there was two angel deities at the base of the dam that almost like, to me, I don't know if anyone's even talked about this yet, but if you look up the Ark of the Covenant and see the two winged beings that have their wings almost touching, creating the arc of energy from the actual device, the electric arc, imagine that arc energy. But the dam itself is a huge energy device. And they believe there's a lot of hidden sacred technology involved with the dams. If you look up a lot of the architecture of the dams themselves, they have megalithic, huge, massive stones as big as the ones they use on the pyramids. But we don't ever talk about this stuff, right? But go look up some of the, anyway, so
it must be the Freemasons.
It's all connected. The Freemasons have information, and even in the book, the Masonic Apron, written in 1906, the Freemasons admit that they actually give homage to their original Masons, which are these gods that they found, these statues found in the jungles of the Yucatan. And these statues were found wearing the Masonic apron. And these are 1,000-year-old statues. And they also have a 3x3 on their sleeves, 33 degrees. And that's the 33 vertebrae that the cerebral spinal fluid travels on its pathway to ascension as it gathers quantum information from every one of our cells, each one of our chakras being a stargate where literally cerebral spinal fluid, highly activated, living, intelligent fluid that's flowing through our body, communicating with every one of our cells. That information is kinetic, right? Synaptic electric energy coming through us and highly intelligent. And as it reaches its way towards the pineal gland, it has to travel through all 33 of the vertebrae to finally reach Brahma's cave, right? The third ventricle of the brain. The full
also
process
called the Philosopher's Stone by the Gnostics.
You called it, right?
On the side there.
And that's why that's why things like Qigong and Tai Chi work so well, because they cause from the yang coming from the sacral, from the first chakra up the back, and then to the what's called Ba Hui, which is the top point on the head here, down all the way down to the Dantian. You cycle that stuff, and that's why it's also been found. A lot of people don't know this, that actually Qi energy is actually been. The Chinese have done a lot of work on this kind of stuff. They can measure Qi and tell whether you're better treating whether it be arthritis or stomach pain. But it's actually a part of the nervous system that is like a latent part that can be stimulated and activated.
We interrupted you, Joshua. I'm sorry. But show us what you were going to say and that thing you were holding up there.
I was just going to go deeper and kind of tune everyone into the artifacts since we haven't talked about them yet. But this here
these are insane.
As a direct representation of the Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper, for sure.
And when you break down the symbol itself, since we brought up, Hitler, the swastika itself is known throughout Tibet and Hindu and many past religions. This is a symbol that's very sacred. And it is actually, when you break it down, it's actually a representation of the Big Dipper as it rotates around the North Star Polaris. And so as it rotates around, all four ports would actually create the swastika. So they anchored it in. and they were pointing at this sacred location, and that the North Star Polaris, which is anchored apparently over, the North Pole, which is also a very sacred magnetic vortex, right? Is all compasses point at this magnetic vortex, and a lot of people believe also, a lot of these sacred vibrational symbols, like the Sri Yantra, is also known to be a representation of basically this vortex. And a lot of people believe there's a vortex that gives you access to, inner earth, right? There's talk about Shambhala and Agartha, and even Admiral Byrd, very, very honorable, being who basically did expeditions to Antarctica, and to basically try and unlock what Hitler was doing up in Antarctica. So Hitler had established a full base, New Schwabenland, right? And there was a whole country up there that he was establishing, in a sense, a secret breakaway civilization that we had to go and investigate. Yeah. And apparently when Admiral Byrd went up there, he had to retreat because they were attacked by ships that came out of the ocean and were making instantaneous right-degree angular turns, and half of their fleet was taken out instantaneously. Yep. So, I mean, this is all, stuff you'll hear about if you do a little bit of research into that topic, but that's, I think it's Operation.
It was,
actually, we go into it rather deeply in our book. Yes. I read his diary account of meeting the people under the ice sheet, the Ariani. And at first I thought, oh, what a lovely little story, like a piece of fiction or something. But since then, there's the documentary that came out about Operation High Jump that you're talking about. Right. It's a Russian documentary that aired on Russian TV in '86. But it was based on a 1947 intelligence report by the Russians. And Admiral Byrd was tasked with the destruction of the Nazi base after World War II was over. We believe that's what Operation High Jump's mission was to go down and destroy this base. But when they got there, the squadron of flying saucers erupted out of the ocean.
Like you said. Mm-hmm.
And so there's that story. And then there's the Anita data, which is the McMurdo, the station down in Antarctica. They shot these antennas up in the sky, and twice now. And they both registered cosmic rays coming from underneath the ice sheet up, which is supposed to be impossible. And then there's whistleblower testimony about a giant hole in the ice sheet and bases in the alien bases down there. Right. And now that the ice sheet's melting, these pyramids are starting to pop out of the ice, So all of this stuff together made me start believing Admiral Byrd's testimony.
And like you said, too, what motivation would Admiral Byrd have to make up a story like this? And also, too, like this whole armada was down there like February 26th of 1947. And the war just ended toward the end of 1945. Yeah. So to organize this whole thing, it had to be a really important mission.
Yeah, well, even deeper, the synchronicities and, like I said, all the ways that information likes to present itself to us. My close friend, Marcel Oñate, he funded our first 2 expeditions down to Ojuelos because we were highly excited about this topic, right? Extraterrestrial alien artifacts coming out of Mexico. And he actually was born in Mexico, in Cuernavaca, so he understood the lay of the land. And so I was like, amazing. And so he was excited about this journey. But come to find out, like 3 or 4 years ago, he was with his grandmother, and she wanted to go visit one of these sites at the cemetery and give homage to basically her boss. And she shows up to the grave, and it was Admiral Byrd's grave. And my friend Marcel was freaking out. He sent me a photo of him standing in front of Admiral Byrd's grave. He says, my great-grandmother was his desk assistant. They gave her a Tinker Time parade every single year till she passed away last year. And there's all these articles about her, but so she was Admiral Byrd's desk assistant. So I went to Mexico with Marcel, whose grandmother was Admiral Byrd's desk assistant. And so we've been trying, we tried to get a little bit of insider information, but her stuff, obviously there was very much insider stuff because she didn't know too much, even as his direct desk assistant lady. Right. So excited, but that's just called that 1 degree of separation, right? Where how do we get this close to authenticating information? But that through synchronicities shocked my friend because I'd been telling him all about, Antarctica and Admiral Byrd, and for him to be taken directly to his grave. I have the photo. I could frame the thing. I love it. I'm blown away. It's amazing to have that happen. But
Wow.
And
even
I went on the
deeper-
Library of Congress to see if I could just get it. I just wanted a picture of Admiral Byrd, right,
There
for
we
the
go.
book. See if I could
Yeah.
get something under public domain. And they have essentially almost scrubbed him from existence.
Yeah.
Almost everything to do with Admiral Byrd is still classified.
Yeah, the story
Why?
of how he passed away is a complete joke. That
It's
he
80 years ago
suffocated.
now.
Yeah, he suffocated from exhaust, apparently in some form of a little base in Antarctica or something, secluded away from everyone. I mean, it's a really weird topic.
Yeah.
But what that brings up for me is this interesting topic that if we went up there to try and unlock what Hitler had established up there, and we were attacked by some advanced technology, my mind starts to think, and then after all of this, after World War II, there all of a sudden was this United Nations worldwide peace treaty that no one could go to Antarctica. And so it almost felt like there was an insider handshake saying, hey, how about this? You guys can claim that you won the war, but we're advanced up here. We'll take you out instantaneously. And if anyone comes up here past this Antarctica, then we're going to use this technology on them. And they're okay. So we'll create a peace treaty, and everyone's going to agree to this. And now, everyone's starting to raise a lot of questions around Antarctica, what's going on. Some people even say in the topic of, geocentricity over heliocentricity, on a geocentric model, that Antarctica is actually, a massive ice wall, and there's more continents that are hidden beyond that. And so if we literally are locked into, in a sense, a certain limited version of how many continents are actually accessible to us, but we've now been told that, the Earth is a globe, but there's possibly there's more continents to explore. And apparently Admiral Byrd had announced that he did find a continent as big as the United States of America when he was traveling past Antarctica. And so and he came back, and there's a whole interview that he did saying that there was a wealth of of coal and other things that we would actually benefit from. I believe they even brought up like plutonium or uranium deposits or something. And then all of a sudden, all of his information went hush, and no one wanted to talk about this new continent that was discovered. But that's getting into an interesting thing. This is about here we are with an open mind to explore what's possible.
Right, exactly. And this also brings us up to like our first commercial break.
Okay, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. I keep forgetting, and we're practically an hour in sometimes.
Yeah, we'll tell everyone to stay tuned because we'll be showing off something really exciting here in a second.
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah, you
Stay
bet.
tuned, please. You'll be seeing Joshua's collection later.
Okay, so this 10 seconds we need, that's all.
All right.
Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Way.
Even my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow. I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.
And we're back, everybody, with our wonderful guest, Joshua Sisler. Joshua, I wanted to ask if you would please tell our audience, how are you dating these objects you're finding?
Yeah, well, imagine that, the artifacts themselves. A lot of people will say there's no possible way to carbon date this. If all you'll get is the time period of the stone itself. But it might be possible now that these artifacts are actually made from an ancient form of nano-geopolymer. And if that is authentic and correct, then that means that we could actually carbon date the nano-geopolymer of almost every one of these artifacts. But besides that, there's also these unique pieces that have inlays. And so this had to be glued in there with a form of organic adhesive, or exactly that's what they tested, and they found that it was a form of organic adhesives, and it was natural saps and resins from trees, different ancient ashes, probably from ceremonial, burning of different objects when they would do ceremonies, right? There was certain sages that they would burn. So I believe that these were like, ancient adhesives that had certain types of saps. Then after time, that'll actually, in a sense, it like petrifies and crystallizes. And there's actually a time period on when that, that adhesive through alchemy was mixed into one. And so they'll be able to carbon date the time period on when that adhesive material was actually created. And so they've gotten, 8,500 year, carbon dating results from scraping out the adhesive resins.
These are thousands of years before mainstream archaeology is dating the pyramid complexes in the area.
There you go. And then that's just scratching the surface. There's terracotta pieces that can be tested through thermoluminescence. And thermoluminescence has more to do with like anytime that a material goes through an extreme heating or a firing process, like, pottery goes through, then in a sense, it almost like resets the photonic light charge of the elements within that ceramic. Like gypsum and different certain materials will be inside the ceramic, and that material can actually gather quantum photonic energy from central sun. So at all times, crystals are taking in radiation as photonic light, and that light is stored. And when it goes through an extreme heating process, that thermal luminescence, that heat with a luminescence, it'll then express that light. It'll release all that photonic charge that it's saved up, and it'll give it like a reset. And so now they'll know when you test it, you can actually see the last time that this ceramic had actually gone through that extreme process of alchemy where the heat released all of that. And then they'll be like, okay, now we'll reset them. So when they do that process, they'll pretty much induce that same situation, get that expression of photonic light that comes off of it, and they'll measure the intensity of it. And the more intense that it is, the longer period of time it has been since that ceramic had gone through an intense heating process. So that's why we're like, wow, we have the science now to basically say all the pottery that we're finding in the area. They say that literally you can go in 100-mile radius, any direction in the area, and if you dig in the earth, you'll find pottery. That's how intense of a civilization this place was. And we've tested it. I've literally walked magically out into the middle of nowhere, like mystery walking, and we decided to take it. We ended up finding pottery right there. So the pottery is what has tested at 910 years. And, our close colleague, Oleg Alistratov, has actually done the tests. And he's gotten the results of 910 years from the thermoluminescence of the pottery. But then there's also these terracotta artifacts that are really unique that he was like, well, these are powerful because this is a terracotta. We could definitely test these. And they were getting 3,000 years on the terracotta. So we have 900 years on just the pottery that's everywhere. So there's different eras of time, right, where we know that these advanced, civilizations were basically learning and handing down information. But we know this by the same way that the indigenous hold sacred fire ceremonies. And I've been directly connected and invited to sacred ceremonies with the tribes themselves. And I've been invited to basically sacred fire ceremonies that, you get access to very sacred oral traditional teachings and information that they believe, has been held sacred for over 10,000 years. And why this is really exciting is because a lot of people ask, well, what is the closest tribe? Do you get access to any of the information from them about these artifacts? And the closest tribe that I could find that has, these original roots is the Huiratica tribe, the Los Huicholes. And they go into the deserts of Huiracuta, which is right next to San Luis Potosí. So the artifacts that I'm talking about are being found right here in Ojuelos de Jalisco. 3 hours away is San Luis Potosí, where this indigenous tribe goes into the desert to actually do pilgrimages to find entheogenic cactus so they can have sacred spiritual messages that come to them from the gods. So Mother Earth is who speaks to them. And Juan Cardenas, the elder of the town, I document this in my book, talking about how he actually will go on, sacred entheogenic cactus journeys, and the spirit of the cactus will tell him where to find these artifacts.
The peyotes, that type of stuff for mescaline?
Exactly, yeah, peyote, hickory. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the cactuses, even the names of these cactuses have been, stolen and indoctrinated into being called a new name. Like San Pedro, for instance, right, is it's not its original name, right?
Right.
So they made sure that they saw these indigenous doing these sacred ceremonies, and through the indoctrination of religion, right? They didn't want them to be doing these ceremonies with their gods. They wanted them to be, honoring San Pedro, right? And so they made sure that they changed the names of these cactuses to one of their saints. And so they slowly would disconnect from their roots. But the tribe that I'm speaking of, they were not taken out or indoctrinated by the Spanish conquistadors. They held their original fire ceremonies. So being a part of these ceremonies, I actually got to experience the actual magic. And I witnessed this personally, and it will shake you to your core. When I came back to civilization back in the US, I mean, I was so heightened and aware of everything and the energies and the intensity of the city, right? Being so far away and being a part of these sacred ceremonies at the high peaks of Ixtlan del Rio. We literally had to drive 2.5 hours to the highest peak of the highest mountains where they do this kiva ceremony. And the elders that we were actually initiated by, this sacred fire has been burning for 40 years. And the way that they work with this cosmic alchemical process is the actual carbon, right? The carbon of the fire, the actual ashes of fire, they save that carbon from every single ceremony and they reactivate it. So they believe that they're opening up basically a plasma quantum portal with the fire ceremony. And every single tribe, when they enter this circular ceremony of the Kiva, from the oldest to the youngest lineage, they all gather a pinch of tobacco and they honor it with their intentions. Then they honor north, south, east, and west. And when they do that dance, you literally see the medicine wheel appears in the center of the sacred fire, because it creates the medicine wheel. As they do the dance and honor each, literally honoring each altar, they open up the medicine wheel. And so you're witnessing them dance the sacred into existence. And then every single one of them, through their intentions, has to burn that tobacco into the sacred fire. So every single tribe that enters the sacred circle is honoring it with their intentions. And what they're doing is they're putting their consciousness into the fire, because they believe that that fire opens up a rainbow bridge, allowing access to 7 generations into the past and 7 generations into the future. And that's what you hear when you say you have to walk on this land with respect for the next 7 generations. That's what it's about. And I get goosebumps telling this story, because this makes you feel it in your core and in your heart, and the understanding of what we're truly meant to do here on this planet, right? And it's about honoring the knowledge, making sure that when we access this information, we share it with the world, right?
This is internal alchemy you're talking about. It's just really that's like you're talking about basically re-energizing the older carbon, which is called like a reduction reaction, and it's almost like a homeopathic reaction. The more you reduce it, the more potent it becomes, but it has to be done and reduced and reduced and reduced again.
Sounds
and
like a wonderful
it's actually beautiful that you're actually talking about this stuff, because people don't realize just what kind of power we have. We give it away so much. We give it away. I'm
really impressed with the latest technology we're talking about too. We really are clever little apes, I say sometimes.
I'll jump into that again, because we jumped into the whole phosphorescence, right? And these artifacts being an expression of this quantum technology. But I'll take that one step further, and why I say that. And I do talk about this in my book, because this is my personal theory that's evolving right now. But it's about, how do we even access quantum technology? And when you back engineer where the qubit came from, have you guys heard about the qubit, the quantum bit?
Oh, well, I know what a qubit is.
We know about qubits, but not the quantum bit. No, we don't know that part.
The quantum bit is an expression of information, and so in normal computing, we have a basic bit, which is the basic unit of information that's exchanged. And when you get into like the programming of algorithmic code, the binary code, you could program the normal bit to basically go from one location to the next. Now
off, yes, no.
Exactly. So that's normal, computing. Now
times 8.
About supercomputers, right, where they access quantum technology. And so quantum technology is the the release of the qubit. And the qubit is actually a form of information that can be superimposed. It can be a 0, 1, or a 1 or a 0. It's like holding both the pieces behind your back and saying, which one do you want? You can have them both because it's that intelligent. It's literally going into the Akashic records, and it's a superimposed information where we're now working with photonic information, that it's a particle that's entangled with a particle in the quantum field, in the Akashic records. And so how did they understand this and find this out? They back engineered what was happening to a diamond, an organic natural diamond. When you hit it with an ultraviolet light, it started to emit phosphorescence, which is this glowing, slow emission of electron excitation. And they're like, well, what is going on there? Why is this diamond emitting this unique photon of energy? And so they zoomed in a little bit more, and they started to find out that that's actually a photonic burst of light of intelligence. That's literally a particle that's entangled with the quantum field. And it was superimposed. It was giving them any information, like the response of information that it was giving was basically the most highly advanced response. It was basically running almost like an algorithmic check through the full access of the quantum field, the Akashic records. That's how they're giving you the most, plausible outcome to the. So this is when you're working with actual true scalar technologies. Now, right now, this technology is being suppressed and it's being controlled through basically our technology. Whoever wanted to control humanity in the first place is whoever created the silicon microchip, because the electromagnetic fields, all they actually do is distort the natural biophotonic aura of the human body. And the electromagnetic fields, they actually disrupt the normal scalar harmonic connection that we have from our heart to our pineal gland. So we're being distorted when we literally truly could be working with the most coherent, technology, which is diamond quantum technology. And diamonds are made of what? They're carbon, crystal, lattice. We are carbon life forms. So imagine that. If we literally are carbon, we should be working with diamond carbon technology. We're in direct harmony. We have a symbiotic relationship. We understand carbon already. But silicon is also truly amazing. But when they manipulate it, it distorts our field, right? When you break it down and work with it in the way that they've manipulated the electromagnetic fields through this technology, then it actually affects our direct link up to this technology. But a quartz crystal itself, this is when it gets exciting. And we'll get back into how architecture is technology. And basically a quartz crystal, the natural termination that forms on the tip of a quartz, forms the most common angle for it to form at to actually be able to call in and channel ether energy is a 51-degree angle. And that's the exact angle of the Great Pyramid. It's a 51-degree angle. So whoever created the Great Pyramid, and there it is.
Generator crystal.
And the top looks like a pyramid. So
it sure does.
So the angle of the quartz crystal is actually the most common angle to be able to source ether energy. And those pyramids are at that exact angle. They're literally anchoring and sourcing ether energy at all times. And we know that
we see a lot of UFOs sort of parked over the pyramids. Wow. And it seems like they're, there's a lot of, we know there's piezoelectricity coming off these rocks the pyramids are built with, but it's almost like they're stopping for gas or something. They're stop, suck up some energy, and then off they go again. And
we know that, of course, the quartz crystals have an almost unlimited ability to store information, and that's another thing that's been suppressed from a lot of people. It's basically they are generators and storers, and we know that the pyramid has encoded into it 43,200. Which is literally the magic number. I mean, talk about a timekeeper. The Great Pyramid was, if nothing else, was a fantastic timekeeper and a measurement system using the cubits.
We know
I wanted to ask you too about the hieroglyphics we're seeing on the artifacts.
Yes.
People, I'll be putting up some of the pictures here in the show, but the stuff they are pulling out of the soil there is mind-blowing. I mean, I'm seeing Proto-Sumerian hieroglyphics, I think.
And
I'm not an expert.
And the Ankh is all over the place.
And we're seeing Egyptian imagery, ancient Sumerian imagery. And I believe this is backing up Sitchin's belief that the Anunnaki had a very strong foothold here in the Americas. And, Sitchin got excited over a bowl they found that had some Proto-Sumerian and cuneiform hieroglyphs on it. He would have been elated to see your discoveries, and I just wish he had lived to see them, but it's obviously vindicating him.
Yes.
And this stuff about the British Museum in London.
Two specific British scientists.
Yeah,
you didn't submit enough theses, so we're going to discount all your work.
They're basically throwing out his 50 years of work and his 9 books and saying it's all.
We know,
wrong, but they can say suck it to them now.
Yeah, we know that there's an agenda to suppress information. Okay.
Of course,
and
we know
that's
that.
why I do the work that I'm doing, because when I first started researching this topic, the only article on the internet was some complete falsification. It was literally someone, and of course it was the only article, and it was the one that was viral. I was saying that these artifacts are being made as tourist attractions in this town, and they're sold at every single little store as a souvenir. And so the first thing I did was, when I went down there, I started going door to door with a photo book of these artifacts, right? And there was not one tiny little store that would sell these things. You couldn't find them in the whole town. So I'm like, this is weird. They said that they're selling these everywhere as little tourist attractions, right? And so I went to this little tiny bread shop, and this old abuelo and abuela are sitting there, grandmother and grandfather are sitting there behind the counter. And I look at them and I go, a little booklet. I'm like, excuse me, I'm like, do you know anything about the artifacts from Ojuelos de Jalisco? I'm showing them 2 photos, and they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Well, dame tu mano, yo tengo un regalo. I have a gift for you. And so I hand them a little handful of amethyst crystals in their hand. And they look at me and they say, well, here, take a loaf of bread. And they slide a loaf of bread over to me. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And they're like, no, please take this loaf of bread. And I'm like, okay, thank you so much. And I take the loaf of bread and adios, and I'm walking down the street, and all of a sudden the old timer comes out with his cane down the street, and he's yelling at me from 2 blocks down. He says, amigo, he says, los piedras es en los montañas. And he points up to the tops of the mountains, and he says, tu caminar, es posible tu excavar. He's like, if you walk around, it's possible you will find some and excavate some. I was like, so the only tip off that I got from walking from door to door was literally felt like I was in the game Zelda, where it says, go to this little town, trade crystals to the bread shop guy, and gain the sword of destiny, or whatever it was. I mean, literally directly to the top of the mountains. And
maybe the bread was like a clue for, it's like, if you see the guy walking with a loaf of bread, he's okay,
That's how it feels. No, that would be cool too. But so it just got much more authentic, these feelings when you go down there, and I actually get to, boots on the ground, actually start investigating, going door to door, and finding out that the only connections that I'm making are, very deep connections, where all of a sudden, someone says, if you go talk to this person, you'll learn something. And all of a sudden you're connected with, Juan Cardenas. And he, is the one who is basically the shaman of the town, the one I speak about. And his energy, you feel it. It's not something you have to question. This is something that's like authentic and real, And that's why I do these journeys, these expeditions, because I read people's energies. I read the truth vibration, right? You can sense when people's energies are off. And that has to do with biophotonic expression, right? And the way that we are highly intelligent beings, and we can sense other people's auras. Because when your aura and your intentions are off, then your geometry, your diamond light body is not coherent, and you can be felt. Your aura can be seen, all of the ways that we express. But when we're highly energetic beings, we have a fully vibrant aura. We're full spectrum rainbows. People feel our energy. So I went down there to test, whether or not these things were, literally being made as souvenirs. And that's what I found out. And that's when I dedicated 10 years of my life to researching something like this. So
now I understand that plant glue you were talking about is carbon dating to between 9 and 25,000 years.
Exactly. I didn't really get into the depth of how old the carbon dating results are that we've gotten, but 32,000, I believe Nassim Haramein even talks about. And so when we talk about these timelines, then we start to have to really look into the mythological historical timeline of the gods, because we hear about Thoth living for 50,000 years. Or being, an infinite God in some form of dimensions. But, when they talk about timelines, they bring up, 50,000 years. So if these gods are living to be 50,000 years old, then we have to start to look at the artifacts and start to say, well, were these created in a timeline prior to basically the splicing and the manipulation of the human genetics, where we as living gods, and prior to basically the Anunnakis manipulating the genetics of the human race and leaving out gaps and codons in our genetics, and those gaps and codons could be the link that allows us to live for 50,000 years. But they just wanted to take out that link and say, hey, what an easy way to control a civilization by making sure they can only live 100 years and not 50,000 like the gods.
That rings so true. And, I'm sorry, but, we have to take our second break here. We're running up against that hour and 15 minutes. And you know what? It feels like we've been on for 10 minutes.
I know. It's just
stay tuned, because we're going to talk about, the fact that the gods were even riding on what may look like some form of what would we want to call this? Like a giant anteater, but it looks almost like a dinosaur. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, cool. Right. Cool. We'll do that.
We'll be back in just a moment, everyone. Hi, I'm Leslie Shaw, and I'm here to tell you about the incident that happened. My husband and I got married on my birthday, so we were celebrating both my birthday and our anniversary camping at Whitewater Campground. And the bank called me and said, "Are you spending all your money in a Texas Walmart right now?" And it's like, oh, no, we are not. And they had drained everything out of our account but 86 cents. That's all we had. And at the time, that was our only bank account. And so we were kind of stuck. And fortunately, the bank was great. And they said that they would refund it, our money, between 5 and 9 business days later. So I was trying to figure out what to feed us for that time period. So I remember opening the pantry going, what am I going to make? And then I'm a stained glass artist, and I had several pieces in a gallery at the time, and one of them sold, and we just got lucky. And I remember it was almost $300, and we were able to go grocery shopping with it and at least feed us for the week it took. And the bank was great. It only took the 5 days, and we didn't have to wait the whole 9. But I would rather it didn't have to happen at all. And we're back with our wonderful guest, Joshua Sisler. And an anteater? What is this this little guy here?
Well, okay, let's pick that one up first. Because these artifacts, they're amazing. When you really start to look into the artifacts and the imagery that you see on the artifacts, you'll see that a lot of times they'll depict in like almost a two-dimensional image, or a one-dimensional image of these beings riding these, what looks like almost like a dinosaur or something. But then
it looks like a kind of a donkey to me, sort of.
Right? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there's many different types of animal deities that we see on the artifacts, and I don't know if you can see up close, but that's the drawing of the being. But they'll do this unique thing where they'll create it as a drawing, and then it'll be represented in a full 3-dimensional form. And so that's what blows my mind about these artifacts, is what they've done is almost every single scene that I've seen in 2-dimensional form will be created in a full 3-dimensional piece with moving pieces and everything. So what that tells me is that this is like a highly sophisticated version of artistic expression. And they were doing this for a reason, right? The reason they create and document information into an artifact, and they understood that this material was going to withstand the test of lifetimes. It almost is like something that can just petrify and crystallize and then literally exist for lifetimes. And so
what are the two materials, by the way, Joshua? They look like they're different.
Yeah, this one almost looks like it could be more of a ceramic, but then this would look like what would be more of that, what we would call the nano geopolymer, which is almost like a unique alchemical process that, in a sense, they were so advanced that, like I said, these artifacts put off the same phosphorescent expression of light as the diamond does. And when you really analyze what phosphorescence is, it's electron excitation, and electron excitation and photonic energy being released is literally the intelligence of information stored within it. And so the same way that the sun feeds literally down evolutionary codes of photonic light to us, and we're constantly taking in information, and all the plants are as well. And when you actually break down the full process of how that even happens, it's an alchemical process involved with what? Carbon again. It's beautiful.
Right.
C14.
Right.
So photonic light comes into our atmosphere. It interacts with nitrogen, N14, and then alchemizes into C14. And so we take in C14, and all the plants, literally, the moment that C14 interacts with the oxygen, it turns into CO2, and all the plants take it in. And so we access this intelligence through eating it, through the ingesting it through the plants, and through inhaling it, microparticulates of it through our oxygen. And so we're constantly, as living life forms, are taking in C14. And that's how they do C14 carbon dating. Because everything that's alive is taking in C14 through this alchemical process. And we're literally taking in translated information that basically collapsed from a wave into matter. And it's how we can ingest intelligence and become literally evolving conscious beings like we are, because we're interacting with this full experience. This is unbelievable. But it's it also gets interesting as well. There's other versions of this nitrogen and carbon interaction. So the more that I've analyzed and back engineered how everything is happening, it seems to be a continuous interaction with nitrogen and carbon. So the interaction of nitrogen 14, alchemizing into C14 in the outer rings of our atmosphere, it almost mimics the process of the nitrogen vacancy location in a diamond that creates the quantum bit, because I didn't fully get into how we even found the quantum bit in the diamond, because it comes from the atomic structure. And Mother Earth created a quantum computer. She literally gave us the diamond, and the atomic structure itself is carbon atoms that are stacked in tetrahedral forms. But then all of a sudden, Mother Nature snuck a nitrogen atom in that atomic structure. And that nitrogen location throws off the atomic structure and creates a unique little vacancy location where those electrons will get stuck into hyperspeed. And
right, because you have to have the space to have electrons.
Exactly. And so that technology alone, when you truly back engineer all the different ways that, carbon is interacting with nitrogen, and I did something really funny. I was like, well, if all these different things are interacting with, nitrogen and carbon, and we are carbon-based life forms, what happens when we flood ourselves with nitrogen? And you kind of laugh because it's laughing gas. It's nitrogen. So when we take in nitrogen, we shift. We almost phase shift, and our whole world gets laughy and crazy. So it's another version of how funny it is. It's almost like the funny little alchemical trick of life. But when we take in nitrogen, the same unique thing happens. We almost become quantum. We are like, whoa. I
take nitric oxide, 3,000 milligrams every day, because what does it do? It opens up. It expands the arteries. It's like one of the greatest things. Our bodies stop producing it about the age of 50. And so you just supplement with that, and basically there goes your heart problems. And guess what? You got a good heart chakra and a good pineal. You got your connection. So I wanted to ask just one real quick question. I've had this theory about the stones at Puma Punko.
Okay.
You know how uniform they look? The big H blocks that are triple beveled in? To me, because I've done a lot of concrete and cement work in my lifetime, okay? They look to me like they've been poured, literally like a polymer type of thing, but they're so uniform. I said, This is the concrete block pour. They didn't cut these. Maybe they finished them off, but it looks to me that they actually were poured. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I know. I have the same thoughts and feelings on that as well. And I have visited, Sacsayhuaman and a lot of the massive megalithic sites.
I'm so jealous.
Unbelievable. I mean, but those actual sites, those megalithic blocks are actually, have some form of photonic reaction as well. So we believe that they were, in a sense, if we look at like the microcosm and the macrocosm of these artifacts being a possible ancient nanogeopolymer, I think it's very possible that those megalithic blocks were poured nanogeopolymers as well.
And Sacsayhuaman, is it showing signs of being superheated, like you were saying?
Yeah, I feel it. It does. But it also shows, that the entry almost looks like a mold, right? How they're so advanced that they must have been molded together. And the blocks are, so massive that it's to me it looks like we're looking at a race of giants, and the same thing when we look at the microcosm and macrocosm of it all.
That's why they call it Cyclopean architecture sometimes, the megalithic architecture. You know?
Completely. Right. And this is just a little side topic, but we got blessed to be taken to a secret caves, right, kind of hidden behind Sacsayhuaman. And we were taken there by some locals, and we were taken into these catacomb caves. And
wow.
when we arrived at this location, they explained to us, oh yeah, every time we come here, you know, the energy is real, like something happens. And all of a sudden, right when we arrived, a storm started brewing over us, right? And so we got, all of a sudden, before we entered the cave, we got hit with these like minute-long rumbles of thunder. Like it was like spirit speaks to you out there when you really start to feel the energy of the place. So when we started going into
wow.
these caves, they said you can't use lights. You're not allowed to use lights. And first of all, one of the explanations was powerful. It's because when you go into complete darkness, it activates the pineal gland, and they believed you would go through a process by being in complete darkness, right? My close friend was a little concerned. He said, what's going to happen? Is it okay if we can turn the light on? And I said, okay, you can turn the light on for one moment. We turned the light on, and we were standing on stairs that were made out of human bones, and all the walls were covered in bones. Like, I mean, bones that were fully overgrown with gypsum crystals too. And so this whole catacombs that no one wants to talk about is completely covered and filled with bones. And I'm looking down, and I'm literally, one of the steps I'm standing on is a skull. And so I took a few photos, and he says, ¿Qué pasa con todos los huesos? He's like, why is there so many like bones? And the guy goes instantly, he said, turn the lights off and we got to go right now. And so no one wanted to let anyone know about how many bones were in this catacombs, you know? And so that was magical, but it wasn't like, it wasn't scary to me. I just felt like, thank you. What a beautiful initiation. And I went to every secret little altar inside these caves. And there was, you know, imagine how, you know, you see these massive like cubes cut out of the wall, right? In certain locations, they believe they're like stargates. But we were deep inside this cave, and where you couldn't bring any like heavy power tools. There's no way you could. And these cubes were cut out of the insides of these caves. I'm like, who vibrated this beautiful geometric perfect altar into this cave? And then there was even one location where a little beam of light during the solstice would come through a crack and would illuminate that altar. And so there's all these secret. I mean, when you get into the magic of the place, it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Would you take us on a little tour now?
Oh yeah. At the end, maybe we're going to do a little bit of a tour.
Yeah. First, let me just show this one, because this one's just really special. And I know I talked about it and said I was going to show this off in the end. But these are some of the little UFOs from Ojuelos de Jalisco. And this is multiple different pieces where you look in the top here, and there's this little being who's guiding the top of the ship. And not even just that, but when you open this up, there's a whole ceremony of little beings that are inside the ship right here, that are all in there. And it's hard to even make, like, must have been a game for children to play with their balance, you know? But there's in the very center, it's hard to show you, but there's a little tiny rock, as if this little space nugget is like guiding the ship. Like it's the energy source. And all these little beings are sitting in prayers around this little tiny nugget in the middle.
Unbelievable.
Each one of these little guys is part of this, you know, journey. So,
and do I see Egyptian
Sumerian or
images on the side of the ship, maybe?
Yeah, every one of these artifacts is completely encoded with information. But what we've been doing is we've been researching the hieroglyphic light language on these artifacts, and we found almost 10 different language systems. And what I've been doing is I've been actually going in and documenting every single glyph that I can. I have a Rosetta Stone, you know, that I'm creating in a sense, where I'm basically, I'm running all these hieroglyphics through I'm vectoring them out and then running them through, you know, AI's algorithmic checks. And I started to do these really cool things with AI, but we'll stay tuned and we'll talk more about that. But I'll show you a little bit of it.
Yeah, let's take a little tour before we sign off today.
And make sure to let people know about your book and where they can get it too.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Josh. We forgot to ask you about what your title of your book is.
Yeah, okay, let's show that real fast. Let me see here. It's going to be, and I'm working on this right now, so I'm still editing it, but there's going to be a lot of amazing information. Ancient Aztlan is going to be how you can find it.
Wonderful.
extraterrestrial artifacts of Ojuelos de Jalisco, Mexico, archaeological evidence of alien contact.
As soon as it's out, let us know, and we'll snag a copy immediately.
Yeah,
we'll definitely we'll advertise it.
I added in a bunch of unique collages in the end of different, theories of mine that I'm working on as well. And
Wonderful.
Just connecting a lot of the dots of different cultures. Like this is an image of artifact from Japan, but we see the exact same connection, happening in Ojuelos de Jalisco.
Right.
So there's all these connections where you can see it happening through all of these past civilizations that have been honored through antiquity. And we see direct visual correlations of these artifacts.
Right.
So
right.
With little astronauts and
Yep.
little aliens, and some of they look like gray aliens with wings, and some
right.
of them have like sperm tails. And,
Yeah.
Can
you see this little one right here?
I'll zoom in a little closer, maybe. Oh,
okay. Yeah.
A little guy in his ship again.
Yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the details of these little ones.
Amazing.
And then pieces like this, they have
We lost you there.
Lost your camera.
Oh, you lost me?
Yeah, just visually, we can still hear you.
There we go. Okay, that's us.
There we go. That's us anyway. Oh, we lost them all together. Oh, well. Well, we were about to sign off anyway with Joshua, and I will make sure to put a lot of these images threaded into the show so you can see them. And we'll be signing off for today.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I can tell you, I learned a lot.
Yes, we met Joshua like 3 years ago at Contact in the Desert.
this past time too, and I tell you, he's the real deal. So we're really looking we're really looking forward to the release of his upcoming book.
Oh, I found him. He's back.
Oh, good.
He's back.
He's
There he is.
I have to be careful when touching my screen.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So I have to figure out.
Sorry, I had him pick up his camera so we could see some of these cool little guys he's got here. Look at those little spaceships on their little feet. Oh, they're so cool.
And
have you found some of these unusual board games too? I believe, at least I know. We saw there's like 3 different versions. Like one looks like chess, and there's one that's like almost like a right triangle that's got different pieces. Have you?
Joshua, we got more than your finger than we do of the other.
sorry about that.
That's all right. There we go. Now we can see the little pyramids.
Is there any way to turn the camera around on here? Because I could do it from the opposite way. I don't know if they can do that yet.
Well, I think we're basically at our time limit anyway, so we're going to have to sign off. And what I'm going to do is, like I was telling our audience, we'll fade up some of your photography in and through the show, and we'll have some people get a closer look at these objects.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Joshua. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this for like months now. So
awesome.
And as soon as your book comes out, maybe we could have you back on and we'd do this again.
Do a launch. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that I didn't get to tune into. And
absolutely there is.
Recently I just did my first interview with Open Minds on Gaia. And after that happened, we had a huge activation. We found a Tibetan tablet in a river up in Northern California.
Yeah.
And did you guys see that? It's part of an 8,000-year-old prophecy, but there's only 1,000 of these tablets that are created and put all around the world. And we somehow ended up finding one in the river right after, doing all these big activations. I was teaching everyone about the sacred mudras in the middle of the river. And all of a sudden, and that's an ancient, Hindu Tibetan mudra. So all of a sudden we found this Tibetan tablet. It just confirms how magical our reality really is when you unlock the magic.
If you send me a photo of that, I'll make sure to fade it up right here.
I'll show you. It's mind blowing. And even just seeing the tablet alone, it has a 8,000-year-old ancient Tibetan language engraved into it in gold writing. Yeah. So we were all blown away. It's
in California, of course.
It's being taken to the land of the medicine Buddha in Santa Cruz right now, so the monks can sit with it. So we knew what we were supposed to do with it. And so, anyways, love you guys. That was great.
Okay.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love mudras and mantras myself. So
yeah, the next one we'll talk more about that. Cool.
Okay.
All right, everyone.